Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Measured Golf Podcast, where you, the listener, sit down and join Chuck and myself as we discuss all things golf. And we've already got a new intro. We are rolling in season 7. We have a new co host, Mr. Chuck Hudson, joining us here on the podcast, going to do his best to offer his insights from a true golf degenerate. And that's what I love about him is he thinks about golf probably as much as I do. We talk about golf all the time, and we decided that it would be awesome to kind of get some of these thoughts out here into the podcast because we don't want it to feel like a lecture. And I think in seasons past, it's been a little lectury from time to time. So, really happy to have Chuck on. The first season, or I'm sorry, the first episode of season 7 was well received. Nobody went on strike and said they would never listen again because of Chuck. So
Yeah, I
Chuck,
didn't get fired, so that
you
was
didn't get
great.
fired. Chuck has been accepted by the listeners of this podcast. So we're grateful for that. Had a surprising amount of people reach out and kind of offer some feedback and ask some questions. So that is wonderful. Please keep doing that because that is only going to make the podcast better. And as I said on the last episode, we want to get to a place to where this is more interactive and is serving the people listening to it. So without further ado, Chuck, how are you, buddy?
I'm great. Yeah, I got some. I was really surprised with people reaching out and having their thoughts and things they wanted answered. I heard from several people that,
Even Mr. Hudson, which we couldn't believe.
yeah, yeah, my dad, mom, dad. So
I mean, if you can impress your own dad, you're doing pretty well.
he's not impressed by much. So
Yeah.
that was an interesting one. But yeah, I thought it was great that people were wanting. They were like, "Oh, that's great! Like, can I? I want. Here's what I'm interested in. Can y'all touch on it?" And I was like, "Michael can touch on anything, so we're good to go."
Well, there's rules for that, but yeah, generally speaking, yeah, we can get into the weeds, but we also, and we were just talking about this before we started this episode, and I said this once again on the previous episode, to where what I'm interested in, what I'm looking at, I don't know how many people listening to this are interested in the same things or looking at the same things, and where I think Chuck does an amazing job and is going to get better at is kind of bringing it back down to a level to where the golfing public, the golf consumer is kind of at, and we can kind of find a happy little middle ground there so that we're not talking over people's heads because that's not really helping anybody either.
Yeah. Um, can we? I, I'm I'm an emotional person. I think one of the awesome things about sports is that the emotion that comes out of it and the stories that Hollywood would throw out. Um, you spoke on it last time at the very end, just on Anthony Kim and what he's doing. Um,
Yeah, it's crazy.
I was up, you were up at 1 a.m. watching.
I was crying like a baby. I was crying like I was watching Rudy.
Yeah, so okay, great. Like that's it. It's emotional. Talk talk a little bit about and put some perspective on what he just did. Like the going away, the coming back to win a professional golf tournament against Rom. Uh, who else was on the top of that?
Bryson,
Bryson was at the top of that leaderboard,
yeah,
and
and Bo raced him. Then like
but yeah,
backdoor into it, like beat
no,
him.
no back door, just like pedal down. And I think that's what. So I just wanted to hear your perspective really quickly on how tough that was and how good he was, or what people thought he was early in his career.
I mean, it was weird in the early 2000s when Tiger was really having his heyday because anybody who succeeded during that time was kind of anointed as the next coming of Tiger. Like we really, Tiger now is an accepted thing, but back then, kind of like Scotty is now, like we don't really want to give him the title. And I'm sure that there were some like reasons behind that, given who Tiger Woods is. But by and large, they kept saying, well, the next guy, there were a lot of people, Sergio was supposed to be the next Tiger when he kind of went back and forth with Tiger at the Masters.
I
There
think
were
that's an
all,
important point that what you're saying is at the time, if anyone competed with Tiger,
yeah.
that was a big deal.
You didn't have to beat him. You just had to be there to
Just
compete
be
with him.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were in the final group with Tiger, it was always like, well, here comes the next Tiger. And there for a while, man, like Anthony Kim, I mean, I would say, and I didn't do enough research on this to really, be a credible source on this, but for like, it seems like 2 or 3 years, Anthony Kim was at the top of his powers, was, I think he won 3 times on tour, was really like playing at a high level. And it wasn't necessarily that he was playing the same game Tiger was. He wasn't overpowering golf. He was just a flusher and a ball striker and made big putts and really was kind of a fun, engaging, high energy kind of guy. He had the big belt buckles. He really influenced the style of a lot of young golfers back then. He looked different because he was different. It was a really interesting thing for him. And like I was watching the Arnold Palmer a little bit this morning before we got on here, and I find it interesting because JT is just coming back from a back surgery, and I think last I saw he's 5 or 6 over par, and that's normal. Like nobody goes away for a while and comes back and expects to just like saddle right back up. Getting through the week is a process, learning how to prepare or getting prepared is a process, doing all these things to get back to where you can compete is a process. So it wasn't surprising to me that Anthony Kim had been in a really bad place for a very long time. And when he came back out, when Liv signed him up and said, hey, we're basically, betting on the allure that Anthony Kim is still relevant. When
Because
he
it
came
wasn't
back,
like he was, not to interrupt you, it wasn't
yeah.
like he was on some other tour. He wasn't touching a golf club.
No, he was in the throes of it sounds like a pretty serious addiction. And not to be to talk, smack about it or anything, but he has a cocaine nose job. Like his
Yeah.
nose didn't used to look like that. And
Right.
that's from, pretty serious drug use. And I think that's the thing that's really been overlooked. And I know he's been very upfront with it and talked about his sobriety and how important that is to him. And as somebody who is an alcoholic and an addict, which would be me, not you, but as somebody who has a lot of experience with that, just getting to a place to where you're willing to put yourself out there when you're relatively newly sober. I mean, I just think it's unreal with him because it's not just the golf for him. It's everything that goes along with the golf. And it's learning to think a different way and behave a different way and act a different way. And to be able to manage his sobriety through all that, I just think it's wild.
Yeah.
Like I think at some point it probably will be like a 30 for 30 kind of thing. But I
Yeah.
don't think people really, because I've heard some stories and I'm not going to share them because I don't know the validity of these stories, but it sounds like he really was in the throes of it. So, yeah, man, good on him. Like good on him. Good on him for kind of getting past that lifestyle. Good on him for, having the courage to get back out there and compete. And I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, well, they're competing for millions of dollars. Dude, you're putting yourself out there for ridicule. And dude, they came. Like when he
Oh, yeah.
came out there and was popping 80s and finishing DFL on the Live Tour, I mean, dude, the critics came for him.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that he was able to get through that and, keep hunting and keep fighting and keep digging. And, I know that he was kind of, when he first came back out, he kind of like rekindled things with Adam Schreiber, his longtime coach from before he went away. And I know now he's working with Matt Killen. And it seems like they've got a happy little marriage going on and things are really turning the corner. And I hope the guy can continue to compete. Most importantly, stay sober and enjoy the ride.
Yeah. Is it, he did open himself up to a lot of ridicule. Like you're saying, he was not playing well. It looked like he was on the live tour because of his name, like he hadn't really earned it. And he got relegated. I was watching just a few months ago him have to work his way back onto the tour, and he won. Or didn't
Finished third in the
yeah,
qualifying.
finished
Yeah,
third in the qualifying. Didn't win, but he
yeah.
qualified.
And like had to do something on the back nine to do it too. Like,
Yes.
I think that was like kind of the catalyst for him a little bit to where, I think he had some positive momentum and I think he was building towards some things. And then I think kind of knowing on that back nine that like, hey, if I want to have a job, I got to get it done. And then
Mhm.
to kind of get it done, like, I always talk to players. I've got a college player that I've worked with for a while now. And, you know, I'd say 3 or 4 months ago, I take that back. It's longer than that. Last season for college, he finished like fifth in a tournament. And he calls me up and he's just like super bummed out. And I was like, "What's up, man? You just finished fifth. Like, that's amazing. That's the best finish we've ever had. It was a pretty good sized tournament." He's like, "Yeah, but I should have won." And I, in a very tactful way, kind of had to explain to him, I'm like, well, dude, how weird was that? How new was that? You knew where you were in this tournament and you've never been there before. You're swimming in very deep, dark waters. So, he feels like he should have won because that's his ego. And thank God he has that. That's what makes him great. But at the same time, it's like you've got to kind of put yourself there. So he has this fifth place finish. The next tournament he plays in, I think he finishes like fourth or third. I can't remember off the top of my head. And same conversation, right? I feel like I should have won, and now I'm starting to believe him. Like, yeah, maybe you should win because now we're kind of working through this process. And I think it's going to be a great spring for him, great spring season for him because he's been there. He kind of knows what it feels like now to kind of be in the hunt. He's had a great off season, done a lot of really good work for himself, but it's like people think that they're just going to rise to the occasion, and that's not how it works typically. You got to go through those processes. You got to kind of keep leveling up and understanding how to kind of work through these things, especially with golf. I mean, people think that they're going to go from shooting in the high 70s to all of a sudden shooting in the high 60s. And it's like, no, you're going to have to tack off every single stroke and kind of like learn how to do that. Like learning to go low it's a real skill. And that's why I think, I get really frustrated with a lot of the parents constantly moving the kids back on tees before they're ready, putting them, in more difficult competition before they've won. Like you want your kid to win early and often. And if that means that they're the best 8-year old, well, that's great because they're 8 years old. They should be
Mhm.
competing against 8-year olds. Taking an 8-year old and having them compete against 12-year old, like that's not doing anybody any favors, man. So, keep them on the short tees until they can, shoot five, six, seven under par. Like you got to learn how to do that, and more importantly, you got to learn to be comfortable with that because there's so many players that start around hot and maybe make a couple early birdies or whatever. And they're so uncomfortable being under par. It's unreal. They're almost more uncomfortable being under par than they are being about 10 over par. Because they have experience being 10 over par. They don't have
Mhm.
experience being under par. So I think you gotta kind of like learn, and there's something to learn here with Anthony Kim. Like if you go back and kind of just like look at this, it's been a process. Like this moment was kind of coming, but it was a long process and it wasn't a clear process. And I'm super happy for the guy. I think it's awesome. Growing up, I'm 41 years of age. He kind of hit me right at that sweet spot when he was out there doing his thing. And I think there was a lot of like 40-year-olds that were pretty excited to see Anthony Kim back in the winner's circle.
Yeah. The story arc for that guy is it. Like I said, Hollywood would throw the script out, um, but now we get to have a 30 for 30 on it, hopefully at some point. And last thing on him, he doing it as like a 170-ish ball speed. I mean, not
Yeah.
he is not overpowering these golf courses. If you were watching him in the final group, there is a immense amount of space between him and Rom and Bryson as he's coming down that stretch.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching, I'm going blank on this, but whoever Scotty Scheffler's paired up with right now, I mean, Scotty Scheffler's out driving him by 40 or 50 yards. And they literally were shooting the same scores yesterday. And it's just like, I keep saying this, and look, I mean, I'm the force plate guy, quote unquote. I can definitely, I mean, I last night I helped a guy gain 15 yards, a couple people gain a bunch of speed and distance, and I do that stuff for people, but at the same time, you got to be able to get the ball in the hole, man. And everybody just keeps treating speed as this like thing that's going to make you way better at golf, and it's like, well, if you can do those other things, if you can get the ball in the hole, if you can chip it close to the hole, if you can hit the green, yeah, then speed is going to really help you. But if you can't already do those things, it's not going to just lower your score because you hit it farther off the tee box.
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely true.
It'd be nice.
Um,
It'd be nice if it was like that cheat code that it kind of gets portrayed as, but it just isn't.
yeah, yeah. It certainly helps put a club in your hand that's dispersion is less, but it does not mean you're going to score better.
Yeah.
The dispersion
There's
may go down and you may see scores be helped that way, but it still doesn't, it isn't like you're saying this cheat code of, oh, I hit it 20 yards further. Well, my score is about to change by
I'll
five
give you a
strokes.
perfect example of this. I had a young man come in with his parents. He's 14, 15 years of age. A good player. Probably shoots in the high 70s pretty regularly in tournament play. Not just, he's going to shoot around par if he's just out there messing around. But like if he's playing in tournaments, he shoots a lot of like high 70s, which I think is fine for, somebody that age. I don't look at these juniors like finished products like a lot of people do. It's a developmental process like we were kind of talking about just a minute ago. But, this kid's like shooting in the high 70s, right? And he comes in, it's my first time working with him. And we're kind of doing our thing. I get him on the force plates. I do a little bit of an eval with him. And I'm like, where can I help you, man? Like, what can I do to help you kind of make that next breakthrough? And he's like, man, I just got to hit the driver farther. And I kid you not, this kid's 14, 15 years of age, and he's putting up like 173 ball speed.
Strong.
It's pretty good, right? 14, 15, 173 ball. Hits it relatively straight too. Like I was pretty surprised. Hits a lot of drivers. Like
I
his
would
his,
not,
his parents
would,
had told me like he was on his I think second driver of the year because he had worn out, two of them and broke the face on him.
from an
So
outside perspective, I would not have said driver's what he needs to work on.
well, yeah, me either, right? So but this is the conversation. Like
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
golf right now, right? Like everybody just wants to like long drive it, drink their transfusions, hit bombs, and not care about their score, right? But I'm talking to this young man, and he's like, "Yeah, I got to work on my driver. I got to hit it farther. This, that, the other about the driver." And I look at him, I go, "Hey, man," I go, where do you play golf at?" And he tells me the name of the club. I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Do you have a handicap?" And he's like, not really. And I was like, okay, fine. Like you play tournaments, you don't need a handicap. I was like, but what would you guess your handicap would be? And he's like, I don't know, probably, 3 or 4. And I was like, okay, fine. I believe that. Like that sounds pretty reasonable to me. I go, let's talk about this real quick. I go, if you take a tour player, okay, the average ball speed that a tour player has right now is right around that 173, 170, or I think it's like 170 something miles an hour. Like it's right in there. It's right real
Hmm.
close to where he was. I think it's like it might actually be 173. But like that's the average ball speed for a tour player. Now, your average tour player with average ball speed at their home club, which is definitely harder than where this young man's a member at.
Let me
But
see if I can guess. Can I guess
yeah, go
what
for
their?
it.
I would say tour player at their home club with that ball speed, plus six,
They're like plus 7, 8, 9.
7, 8. Yeah,
Like they're good. They're
that's
really
strong.
good. Especially if they know the course they're playing, right?
They are getting close to that course record every 12 rounds.
Yeah. Which is crazy, right? And that's why the guys that are members at places have the course records, right?
Yeah.
Like so and I look at him and I was like, hey, and I think I told him I'm like, they're an 8, okay, like a plus 8. And he's like, okay. And I was like, well, you guys have like the same ball speed. And you're giving up, basically 12 shots
Yeah.
basically hitting the ball from the same place in the fairway because the fairways where this guy's a member, they're pretty wide. So he's probably in the fairway as much
Hmm.
as that tour player is because he's playing a tougher golf course. So it's like you're playing golf from the same place in the fairway. You're getting off the tee the exact same, and he's still beating you by 12.
Hmm.
Like I don't think driver is the gap. You know what I mean? Like, and it's funny because you talk to people about that stuff and kind of try to explain the gaps to them, and they just don't get it. And it kind of goes back to, another guy that I recently worked with, came in just he had just went down. We're in Michigan. It's very cold. It's not very golf weather here, but he had just went on a golf trip down to Florida. And he comes back and he's like, man, I just putted terrible. I putted terrible. Like, I'm such a bad putter. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I got to fix this. I guess I need to get a new putter. All the things you hear people say when they feel like they're not putting well. But it was funny because when he does the Clipped app, as I have a lot of people that I work with do, and the funny thing is his putting was a pretty normative performance for him with the putter. It really was. Like it wasn't when we looked at last season's putting compared to what he did in this round. I mean, it's within one putt total putts of one another. It wasn't like he was out there three putting and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But what was really interesting is how badly he chipped and pitched the ball, but he blames the putter, right? And it's like you got to help people understand because I hear this all the time. The driver's a problem. Driver tends to be a lot of people's strength because that's what they practice the most. And then people blame their putting all the time. Well, if you're chipping it to 12 or 15 feet and missing 12 and 15 foot, like that's not the putter's problem.
No.
Like you've got to chip it closer to the hole. And that's where I think a lot of people just don't really understand these gaps in their games. And it's easy to blame the putter because that's the one that missed the hole. And it's easy to blame the driver because every now and then when you do hit one in the water, or you do hit one out of bounds, emotionally, it's like a big deal. But at the end of the day, man, like the nuts and bolts of it, you've got to understand where those gaps are.
Yeah, that the having you got me on the Clipped app. I would recommend to anyone that's
Anybody,
somewhat competitive at golf or
even
wants
anybody.
and I think it's been pretty eye-opening to see because you get to compare your stats against yourself. And I know that we've done that where, okay, I'm comparing today's round and we go and look at what my overall score is as a player and then comparing and you're seeing like, oh, okay, I felt this area was bad, but it's better than what my overall score is or at the same. And then an area that I thought was really good wasn't even up to par of what I would typically do. So, yeah, it's you have to look at it. Um, and I, until you and I got together, I probably didn't keep my stats as well as I should have. And
Fairways hit, greens percentage, total putts, worthless. Tells you nothing.
yeah, yep,
Tells you just absolutely nothing. And like I hear parents all the time come to me with their juniors and like, oh, we got these numbers. And I'm like, they tell me nothing. Like
yeah,
it's so irrelevant.
yeah,
Like,
agreed.
if your total putts is 30, or like 32 or 31, okay, I think an average tour player is like 29, something like that. But like if you're like 31, 32, that sounds kind of good. You're like, ooh, somebody can putt a little bit. Well, if you were knocking it stiff all day and you
Yeah,
had 31 putts, like that's not very good.
yeah,
It just doesn't really tell us the whole story. And I think that it's where Clipped once again does a really nice job of kind of identifying those gaps and helping you understand like, for you, it's like you're an 87 or a 90 or whatever it is. I can't remember off the top of my head, but this is where you're at as a in total. And then like these are the couple segments, driving and approach play where you're above. And then, you've got these couple areas where you're below. And it's like, oh, well, now I know what I actually need to go work on to get better and to improve my overall skill or my overall score. And that's just, like I was talking to somebody about last night, actually, we were talking about how you can't find a public facility anymore with a short game area. And chipping and pitching is easily one of the worst parts of the game for most golfers.
Yeah.
But you can't find these facilities anymore. Like they don't exist because people don't use them. And it's like, I want to get better at golf. I want to chase scratch. I want to do all these things. Well, you're gonna miss greens no matter how good you are. And I think that's another interesting conversation about youngsters especially are convinced if they go out there and play well, they're convinced they're going to hit 14 fairways and 18 greens. They think they're just going to ball strike it to death and everything's going to go smooth as it can be. But even if you're the best player in the world on tour, greens percentage, you're like low 70s,
Yeah.
right? So 30%, a third essentially, six greens in regulation, you're going to miss.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get up and down six different times from six different situations to have any chance of just shooting par, right? Like you've got to protect yourself. You can't go and auto bogey every time you miss a green. You're not going to make seven birdies versus six bogeys to shoot one under par. Like it's too many birdies. People don't
Yeah.
make that many birdies.
Yeah.
Ideally, we're trying to get people to make, in the competitive scenario, we're trying to get people to make like four birdies around. Okay, well, if we know statistically you're going to miss six greens and you're only going to make four birdies, if you're going to average a scoring average of 70, you better be pretty good at chipping and pitching the golf ball.
Hmm. Yeah. That it's like you're reading my mind. You have just segued us into a perfect spot here.
Ooh, we're
Um,
getting better at this.
we're getting, yeah. One of the questions or topics that came in
Mm,
for us,
listener supported.
listener supported. I mean, this could not have been any better. You could not have teed this up better. So, on tagging on to that short game, chipping, pitching of the ball. There is, as you are well versed in, a a
Rift.
left versus right uh, of shallow, steep.
Why can't
There's
we do both?
and I've heard you say that. Like, why is it so one way or the other? There are so many different shots to hit around greens, different ways to do it. Talk to us. I know you're close with Parker.
Yeah.
Um,
And I like
talk to us.
Joe. I honestly like the big misconception about me is that I have like some beef. I have zero beef with Mr. Mayo. I have no
Right.
beef. None. Like if you go on my Instagram, I'm literally chipping a golf ball off of a TrackMan, like literally chipping off the TrackMan. And I mentioned Joe in the post, and I'm like, and I showed the TrackMan data. I'm like 10 down or whatever, and I'm literally at that point in time with that post supporting what Joe is saying because when Joe first came out and was like, "Hey man, you got to get, VSP up and you got to get down on this thing and, you can go double digits." That was really not well received in the beginning when he first started saying those things. And I've never thought he was wrong about that because I understand like low point is happening well in front of the golf ball and you can really hit down on this. And that doesn't mean you're going to stick the club in the ground and hit it fat. So once again, like I have zero beef with Joe, zero. Like it's not personal for me. Um, you know, he does his thing, I do my thing, zero beef. Same with Parker. Like I love Parker to death. He's one of the nicest people in our industry. Great guy. Have learned a ton from him. Really enjoy every chance I get to work with him, and we work together a lot. And I like what he brings to the table. But the one thing that I would say kind of got me in the middle of the rift is that there for a bit, it was, hey, you have to chip this way. At
Hmm.
least that's how I perceived the messaging that was going out from Mr. Mayo. And the thing is like, and I'm nobody, dude. Like I've got a little bit of a following on social media. Parker and Joe have huge followings on social media. And the thing is a lot of people take this stuff they see on social media to the bank. And like that's what they're gonna do because that's what they were told to do.
Hmm.
And I think with this big following comes a great big responsibility to your audience, to the people that follow you. And I think it's disingenuous to say, and look, he's backed off of it. I'm not saying he's saying it right now, but back then it was very much a you have to do it this way. And I 100% disagree with that because there are times for sure where we want to be steeper. We want to get the VSP up. We want to do a lot of the things that Joe is talking about. Like, I 100% agree. There are situations that that is necessary. However, there's a lot of situations as well to where I don't want to do those things because I got to get the ball up in the air.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's where I kind of got involved is that, Joe and Mr. Mayo, if you will, uh, really kind of went after Parker for what he was teaching because it wasn't just this steep and down and VSP and all that. And that's when I kind of got involved because I don't want to see anybody get bullied. And, you know, recently, I think it was Country Club Collective or whoever kind of shared some of Joe's old stuff.
I saw
Uh,
that.
what's that?
I saw that. They
Yeah.
were
And Joe's
to
like kind of like saying the opposite of what he's saying now.
yeah.
And I don't think that's fair to dig up, the past. And I think Joe, and fairness to Joe, Joe stood up to it and was like, "Yeah, man, I've learned stuff, I've changed, and this is kind of where I'm at now." And that was 14 years ago, or how many ever years it was. And I've learned something and I've changed, and that's fine. Like we're all allowed as coaches to grow and evolve and change, and that's good. I think we all should be doing those things. So. I think it's kind of died down a little bit, it seems like, because honestly, I think arguing about how to pitch and chip the golf ball is I don't think anybody's really entertained by that anymore. But at the same time, it's like I think, from my perspective, you've got to be very variable with your short game and how you're going to chip and pitch the golf ball and what you're trying to do with the ball. I think a lot of people or struggle with that a lot. I think a lot of people really struggle with low point and understanding where that happens and things like that. And then because they struggle with low point, they're terrified to get the ball up in the air. And a lot of people are out there trying to bump and run it and trying to do all these things. But that really limits your ability with certain pins in certain situations. So, for me, it's like I would rather teach somebody how to hit a high, soft, floaty one and teach somebody how to hit a low, kind of spinny chipper. I think you want to kind of have people that have as many tools in their toolbox as possible when it comes to chipping and pitching. And I think we need to be fair to the people listening and go, hey, if you're good at the bump and run, great, good on you. That's a great shot. You can use it when you need it. But you probably need to work on hitting that high, soft, floaty one in case you got to kind of land it on the front side of a green and get it to stop. I think letting people think that, well, I've got one way and I'm going to apply this one technique to every situation. I think letting people go out there with that kind of mindset is criminal. I think you've got, especially when it comes to chipping and pit, like I want you to have a stock shape off the tee. I want you to have a stock shape with your irons. I want to let the lie dictate whether you draw or fade it with your approach play. Like, yeah, it's a little more paint by numbers there. But then when we get into short game stuff, man, it's really way more artistic, and you have to be able to have some feel and create some different things.
So this is my number one goal of this podcast is me to facilitate the knowledge of Michael Dutro. So if I'm on the other side of this podcast, I am just yearning for you to explain. Talk us through if you were going to teach the high one and then you were going to teach the low one. And then I will try and if you start doing any visuals, I'm going to try and get the audio
I'm going to
group.
try not to just because it's a podcast.
Okay. But give us that hey, how would you teach? What are things to look at? How, and shallow, higher, steeper, lower? Tell us what you would do there.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like, and this is something I want to give credit to Parker. I'm stealing directly from Parker, but you got to start with a vanilla shot. And everybody's vanilla is a little different, right? So, for me, let's take, and I'm very fortunate because I have my facility, Measured Golf in Ann Arbor. We have this giant, like 3,000 square foot putting green, and we chip off of it all the time. And it is a very tight, firm lie. And it's not like people hate that situation. right? So people don't like, it's like I'll be out playing golf with people and don't tell the greenskeeper this, but I'll chip off the putting green every now and then. And people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. I'm not going to chunk it. Like I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to take a big swipe out of the putting green. But what I generally try to do with people is identify first what their vanilla looks like. So there are people who, if you just go, hey, we're going to take your stand wedge, we're going to play it with a square face. I'm going to get them out of this super narrow, lean left, open the body up kind of position to start. And I'm going to go, hey, I just want a neutral setup, kind of like you would do with like a pitching wedge, right? And then I want ball middle to slightly back. Okay. I don't want it back off your right foot or anything like that. Like just kind of very, like I said, vanilla, very neutral, right? Like, what does this look like? How does it
And
launch?
and stance is pretty it's not you're not super feet
Nope.
super close. We're kind of shoulder width.
I wouldn't say shoulder width, but I don't want super, super close.
We're not together.
We're
Yeah.
not together,
Yeah.
right? And we're definitely not wide open with our alignment for sure.
Very
We're
square to
real
the
pretty
target.
square, right? Square face,
Right.
square body, like everything just kind of, like I said, neutral, vanilla,
Yep.
right? And like the funny thing is, man, is some people from that position will hit like a really low little checker. They get a lot of handle lean in there, which is fine, right? I'm not saying handle lean's bad. But they'll get like a lot of handle lean in there and they'll hit it super low and kind of screaming and spinning and doing all that. Other people from there will kind of hit like more of a mid and then every now and then you'll get somebody, and this isn't the worst thing ever, but every now and then you'll get somebody that kind of actually launches it kind of high from there, which is interesting.
Mm.
So, long story short, I just kind of start with, okay, what would you do if you were just neutral and vanilla? What does that look like?
Hmm.
Okay. Now, from there, we obviously have to build, and let's use the example of they hit it pretty low and screamy and kind of checky from there. Okay,
Yeah.
great. We need to soften that up, right? Like
Yeah.
that's step one with that person because anytime we're chipping and pitching the golf ball, the mission is to slow the ball down. This isn't a driver. I'm not trying to speed it up. I'm trying to
Yeah,
slow it down,
we're
right?
doing everything we can to decrease ball speed.
Correct. So for me, it's if I have the guy hitting the low screamer, I'm definitely going to figure out like why is there no loft on that face, right? Or why is the attack angle super down that takes the dynamic loft way down? You know,
And would you
what
say that this person might struggle with low point and that's why they've got that ball is coming out that way because they're nervous about the heavy shot?
I think for that person, typically low point is happening at or before the ball, and they are leaning the handle beyond belief, trying to make sure that they get it in front of the ball and don't lay sod.
And then where you were going before I interrupted you, walk us through what you'd be saying to that person to add loft that would then be changing that low point where they felt like they could apply it that way.
Yeah, so I'll use a couple things, but generally what I'll start with is that low point conversation. And sorry if anybody sees me do anything weird. My wife's parents have gotten a new kitten. This is the kitten. Say hello. Okay. And the kitten is a terrorist and it is just going bananas. So I apologize on behalf of the kitten. But so with the low point thing, the first thing that I like to do there is just put something in the way. So whether that be like a putting mirror or, just a towel or whatever you want to kind of use in that situation, I like to put something behind the ball and go, okay, I want you to hit this golf ball and I don't want you to hit whatever's in the way. And generally, you'll see people kind of struggle there because they kind of get a lot of rocking going on in their motion and do a lot of weird stuff. But, just starting to get the ball out in front. And for the situation we're talking about where they kind of already hit it low and screamy, you start moving low point forward, they start blading it and topping it.
That's what I was about to ask. Is this sounds like if this were me, I would just start leaning the handle more.
Yeah, and that's typically what they do.
Okay.
So then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, now we understand where all the forward shaft lean is coming from because we don't have low point control. But
Hmm.
now that we've got low point kind of where it needs to be, now let's go ahead and start standing the shaft back up a bit and take some of the lean out. And I'm not saying that I want zero lean. I'm not getting to that point,
Hmm.
but we have excessive lean. And I'm really trying to get people to kind of take a slightly different look at that and go, okay, I don't have to do this all with my hands. I'm kind of going to do this a little bit more with pressure. And generally, what you'll see is like for that person to miss the towel or whatever's in the way and not low point too early, they kind of start moving pressure, not mass, pressure more left. And now there's like a braking mechanism where we can start letting this club release and we can start getting some loft back on the face. And now all of a sudden we can get the launch angle back up and kind of create more of a function, what I would call a functional vanilla shot, to where the loft is gonna, I'm sorry, where the launch angle is gonna create a better land angle and spin rate to where now we're starting to match these things up to where like, hey, I know it's gonna go that far and I know it's gonna stop versus the it's gonna hit that green and it's not stopping for a week.
Hmm.
So generally trying to kind of help people understand why they do what they do because people were just like reacting to the situation in front of them, right? So generally, like somebody that has a ton of lean tends to kind of be standing on the right foot. That's one of the reasons I hate the super narrow stance with the alignment way open because those people just tend to stand on the right foot and try to chip from there. Well, if
Hmm.
you're standing on your right foot trying to chip from there, you better lean the hell out of that handle because if you don't, you're in trouble, especially if it's soft turf that you're chipping off of, and you're likely to, kind of start laying that sod in that scenario.
Yeah, I think especially in my part of the world in Chattanooga, Tennessee, right now, you've got all this dormant, wet Bermuda that is, even for the professionals, the nightmare situation.
For sure.
Um,
It's grabby and it's wet. Like it's a double grab, right?
yeah, it's a terrible spot to be. I mean, you can be just sitting there 2 or 3 shots in, you haven't moved the ball at all.
Yeah,
So the when you talk about moving your pressure left, mass is not going left.
correct.
I and this is just I'm just asking you questions here, but the to me, I think what's when you and I have talked about this, what's also helped me is that when you get that pressure left, to me, it almost feels like I'm kind of pushing myself
Up.
back to my up and back to my trail side. But I think the other piece is your upper body, your chest, torso has to also be moving that direction, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because I think that's something that people sometimes miss in this, and maybe you can keep talking about is that
Well, to your
the
point, if you get pressure left and you push against the ground, you don't fall into the ground. Like that's the big thing I see that's it's really bad is
yeah,
I think there's a lot of information out there about getting pressure left. And Joe's stuff has been hot for a while now, get left. And the problem that I see with that is people, and Joe talks about this, right? Joe talks about getting up,
yeah,
down and up, but kind of staying left and down and up. Like, at least I appreciate that Joe talks about the up part. But I think what people don't understand is that, by and large, there's a lot of people falling left and then
yes,
they're just sticking that thing in the ground, right? So I think the big thing that people have to realize is that we are essentially going to move low point with a combination of center of pressure and center of mass. But I've got to rotate, right, my chest at some level to kind of get my hands forward of low point, right? Like
hmm
I've got to kind of rotate this upper body. Now I'm going to steal one from Greg Rose, Dr. Greg Rose, I should say. But the spine works in coupled motions. And that's a fancy way of saying that if I want my thoracic spine to rotate, which
and
I do,
I think that people need to listen to this because this is very interesting what you're about to say about how the spine moves.
right. So if I, and in the golf swing, and there's different ways that you can do this, but we're talking about golf because I'm a golf coach. But in the golf swing, if I want the thoracic spine to rotate, I also have to extend it. And an easy way to kind of figure that out is if you go into your golf posture and kind of tilt forward and try to rotate your chest, it's not going to rotate very much.
Yeah,
But
and
if you
this
let yourself stand up, now you can
Mhm.
really start rotating that chest, which is where a lot of golfers run into issues because of all the things that golfers struggle with big time. And like the vast majority of golfers, creating thoracic mobility is that thing that really is a struggle for them.
and you're you would be hearing from conventional wisdom. Oh, you can't. You got to stay down on this ball. You got to keep your chest, your head down.
Right. But if I
Your
stand up, right, if I create vertical force and kind of get the body to stand up, that's going to force the club head down.
And I think that's what people don't understand, and that uh, people like yourself are
Why
bringing
is it
to.
the people that stay down in their chipping motion, pitching motion, either one? Why is it that the people that stay down and don't move their head and this, that, and the other, why are they the ones always blading it?
Yeah,
Right? And it's because there's nothing creating that downward motion for the club head. And it's because they're not standing up. The funny thing is, I was having a conversation with a biomechanics the other day, which shall remain nameless because I didn't tell him I was going to talk about this on the podcast and I don't want to talk out of school. But I was having this conversation with him, and we have a theory. You're going to love this. We have a theory why golf is so hard. We actually have a theory, like why golf is so hard for people. Dude, I work with Major League Baseball players that whiff golf balls, can't hit them, right? Like I've worked with other professional athletes that can't hit a golf ball to save their life.
which hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in sports. So
Right.
if
And
it's
they can't
sitting
hit a golf ball that's
stationary,
stationary.
they should be able to hit it. Yes.
Yeah, 100%, right? So here's the thing that this biomech has shared with me. And I never really thought of it, to be honest. So I don't want to like make it sound like this is my thought. It's not. But I've been thinking about this for a while. Golf and ski jump. Okay, ski jump, if you're unfamiliar, we just had the Winter Olympics. The people that like launch themselves off one of these really big ramps and go flying for what seems like about 10 miles,
This is
that's
Eddie
ski
the Eagle
jump.
guy, right? With the
Right.
movie.
Yeah,
Okay.
the guys that were, tucking their underwear in the Olympics and made a big fuss about things,
Yeah.
those guys. When you play golf and when you do ski jump, you push your body up and your arms go down.
Hmm.
That is a very weird thing that we do not train as human beings because these are probably the only two times you're going to do that combination.
Hmm.
Generally, when our body goes up, our arms want to go up. It's very rare that the body goes up and the arms go down. That's
Mm.
how we're actually creating this extension through the arms and kind of leads to good club delivery. And it's wild. And it's probably, I would say over the past 2 weeks, you know, I generally, when it comes to force plate application and it comes to like what we're looking at with forces, generally I'm trying to clean up a few things and then get the vertical force. Here lately, I've kind of changed my tune on this, and I've been going a slightly different route. And I've been taking a 2 pound medicine ball. Yeah. And the funny thing is I think medicine balls are great for golf application and learning how to get better at golf. The problem is that a lot of people, when they go to slam a medicine ball, they go down with the ball,
Hmm.
right? We have to go up and the arms go down. And now, if you're slamming a ball that way and kind of pushing up through the balls of your feet, that's the key part to that. So we're almost doing like a calf raise and then slamming the ball, right? That's kind of how I would describe that to people that are listening. If you can get people to kind of get comfortable with that and then get them to do that slightly left of where the middle is, meaning like kind of outside their left foot, it's amazing.
Acting in their downswing, when you say outside,
Yeah,
that would be pushing this medicine ball towards the target if they were in a golf
on the
stance
target line.
on the target line.
Yeah,
So the I've got so many thoughts after things you've said. But the big thing being what you were getting at there is that you cannot stay down.
no,
The club head, and this may surprise some people, the club head and the downward angle of attack come from the shaft being pulled up and
correct,
the head going down.
correct,
It is not from the shaft going down, because if the
correct.
shaft goes down, the club head works the opposite way.
And this is why, like, for years, I mean, years, it's been, I don't know, 5 years since I've been to Denmark, 6 years since I've been to Denmark, something like that. Like, I've always said this. I think the number one most important number that you can look at on TrackMan is dynamic lie. You have to look at that number. Like, you have to look at hey, I'm swinging a 7 iron that's somewhere between 60, 62 and 63 degrees, depending on the manufacturer, whatever. You need a loft lie machine. It makes me sick how many golf coaches, A, don't have a loft lie machine and B, don't know how to use it.
And
But
explain
like
dynamic lie. How is it measured? How's TrackMan measuring it? For
kneecap to
those that don't
kneecap,
know.
essentially.
Say that again.
It's basically measuring the club shaft from kneecap to kneecap
Okay. So
and the
it is
downswing.
measuring the angle that that shaft
Correct.
is on from kneecap to kneecap.
Correct. More or less. Right. So the thing is like, let's say the static lie, and just use round numbers. Let's say the static lie is like 62 degrees and you got somebody delivering that thing at like 58 degrees. Well, how did they get the handle so low? Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, they're falling on the golf ball. Or how did they get that angle so high? Oh, they're, call it early extension or whatever you want to call it, but they're getting too up. And it's like, generally speaking, if you start thinking about this dynamic lie scenario and the angle of the shaft or the pitch of the club shaft, some people like to say it that way. My friends across the pond always talk about the pitch of the shaft. But like, if you start messing around with the pitch of that shaft, you're going to start having some like face angle issues, and B, the club path is going to start doing some wonky things too. But if we can get this, and look, I want to be clear, and you already said this. I do not want my dynamic lie to match my static lie. Okay. I should be forcing the handle, as you said, up and the club head down a bit. Like I'm trying to release the energy in that club shaft. So if that's the case, like I want to see the dynamic lie slightly higher, let's say, 2 to 4 degrees higher than the static lie. But that's going to start in my head, like telling me, hey, we got something good going on here. And we're at least getting the club somewhere in the neighborhood of where we need to be to kind of have a neutral delivery, which is going to allow me to kind of hit some neutral vanilla golf shots.
Yeah. And I think that um, that shaft, being comfortable with not only pushing up through the ground, but it also needs to cause the upper body to come up, like you've talked about, and then turn from there. That's allowing that club head to work down. You feel like you're almost. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to hit it thin, but really, you're lining that shaft back up, and it's delivering
Agreed.
a great strike. Stealing something that John Tattersall used to tell me, that most of the time on the thin shots, it was that you were catching the ball thin on the way down, not on the way up. Like you had leaned the shaft so much or had pushed the shaft down to where now the club head was going back the opposite direction on the way down, and you were just catching it thin at impact,
For sure.
like from the shaft lean, not from you're going to miss it by you have pulled the shaft too far up and the club is hitting the top of the ball. So
Yeah. And
I think,
if you don't think that's true, look at the long drive guys. Like
yeah,
watch them like slow mo face on and watch how hard they're pulling that thing up, not pulling it down, pulling it up.
yeah,
I mean, it's absurd, but
I think,
that's where you really can start creating some good things in your golf swing. But you need the vertical force for that, right? And I think that's where a lot of golfers really struggle the most is, it's just been an epidemic of stay in your posture, keep your head down, stay down, all those kind of classic things that have been said, which logically I kind of get where people are coming from, but it's just not the way it actually works when you measure things out.
I think that's certainly something that you and I have worked on and has kind of been light bulb moments of, oh my gosh, I need to push way more than I think. I
Yeah.
need to stand up way more than I think.
Yeah, we call it stilts with you.
Yeah, being on the stilts. And so you've got this now you've got the ability to control that low point for this vanilla shot that
Correct.
we're trying to hit.
Terrorist.
Because if you're trying to hit the low one, I think you would say yeah, like now we can maybe have some shaft length, like we can probably get away with a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I
then,
generally don't find people have a hard time hitting the low one.
right.
Generally, I found that people have a hard time getting the ball up,
Yes, getting
especially in the short game.
so okay, now take us to the far end of we're trying to hit this soft, higher shot that, like you said earlier, people are so afraid to hit because they can't control their low point.
Yeah, I do the
And they've got,
exact opposite, honestly, in a lot of ways. Like I'll stick something in front of the ball, like a towel. It has to be something flat, right?
okay.
But I'll make them actually start hitting, basically make low point where the ball is. Like I think that I
Mm,
want to get rid of all the angles that are leaning this thing and taking away loft. And I just want to get to where, and I mean, I've seen some kids here recently, even off that tight lie situation, like I was talking about earlier. I mean, they can hit these like 4 or 5 yard little, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. They can hit like 4 or 5 foot, like pitch shots that are, 4 or 5 feet off the ground and just land like elephant
right.
crap. Like really, we're going to get the face more open for that kind of shot. Now we're going to start with a square face and learn how to kind of get it up a little bit through a square face. But once we kind of get the angles kicked out of there and we get the shaft leaning up or standing up more, and we're kind of getting low point a little closer to the ball. And that's the thing, right? Like I'm not saying I want low point before the ball. I don't. But I do want low point closer to the ball. I don't want it nearly as far forward. I don't
Yeah.
want to have the risk of that forward shaft lean that creates that hot shot. I'd really like to see low point happening, just at the ball, just slightly after. But that's the thing that I think people don't get sometimes is that if you're watching this, I got a circle here I'm holding up. It's a little jar. Sorry, I just grabbed something. But like the bottom of this circle or the bottom of this arc is here. Okay. Well, if the golf ball, okay, if the bottom of that arc is happening in front, I'm still hitting down back here. I'm going to hit the ground. And this is the thing that I think kind of gets misled is you can hit the ground before the ball, but low point can't be before the ball, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And people confuse where you hit the ground with low point all the time. Where you like arc depth, and I think that's a good thing that TrackMan's added is when you kind of start thinking about arc depth as that relates to low point, now all of a sudden you realize like, oh, I might hit the ground slightly before the ball, but that doesn't mean that's where my low point was.
Right.
Right. So I think that's where, generally people that have a hard time hitting it higher, once again, they're afraid of chunking it. Right. So they're just constantly trying to get low point way too far forward. And I would say for them, generally speaking, those are generally your people where you're spending a lot of time working on that upward movement with the body because that's what sets the break. That's what dumps the angles out. And that's what allows us to get the ball up in the air. But generally, we're going to have to get low point kind of happening somewhere to where we can use the bounce on the wedge a bit. Because as much as bounce sometimes doesn't matter with particular types of shots, bounce really and the grind of that wedge really become important when we start trying to hit the kind of soft floaty ones. And I think a lot of people, I remember back in the day, no good player uses bounce. Dude, lots of good players use bounce. Like
Hmm.
you bounce is not the enemy like it's been portrayed in the past. And I know back in the day, man, we used to like take grinders to these things and knock all the bounce off of them. And you'd go out there and dig trenches with these things. But bounce is your friend. And, we've had this conversation before. And I get it before the people light me up in the comment section. I understand this. So just stick with me for a minute. If you go to, it's Titleist.com or it's probably the Wedgeworks website. If you look up a K grind, okay, the K grind wedge was the most winning wedge on tour last year. It was almost, I don't want to say, I shouldn't say that because that's a little grandiose, but I mean, it had wide market adoption and the most lofted wedge for most of the guys out, not most, but a lot of the guys out there. And I get it. They're playing a K star, not necessarily the regular K grind. But the funny thing is, and I'm convinced of this, if we went to the golf course and stood on the first tee and showed everybody a K grind wedge, they'd be like, "Oh no, I'd never play that thing. That's an old man's wedge. It's got a big old fat bottom on it. It's got
It
a lot of
does.
slant."
Yeah. If you showed it, you're right. The someone looking at it would think that's like a that's to help the higher handicap.
Yeah, and it's not. And people don't understand bounce. Bounce, and I've said this to you too. Bounce is not trying to deflect the ball off of the ground in the downswing. Bounce is there to get the club back out of the ground.
And I
And
think
where a
that
lot
was
of people struggle in bunkers in particular, soft bunkers, which is typically what we see, like the guys on tour get a firm bunker, everybody else gets a super soft, kind of sandy bunker. But guys get down trying to hit 2 inches behind it and trying to get steep and trying to make spin and all these things. Well, the thing just buries in the sand and it won't come back out. When no kidding, there's no bounce. If you have some bounce, you can hit the sand hard and it shoots it back out. And having that wider flange on the bottom or that big old bottom, that's going to help kick that thing back out for you. And that's where people lose all their speed in the bunkers and struggle in the soft, fluffy stuff. They just bury that thing underneath the sand and it never comes back out.
I think that was another light bulb moment for me was when you explained bounce that way that it is how it is coming out, not how it's going in. And it really kind of changed my, it was almost like an aha moment of, I have one club that's got some pretty fluffy sand, and I've got another that's got some firmer sand. I love the firmer sand. It's
Yeah,
my
of course.
favorite.
It's way easier.
Way easier. And my T grind, 60 degree, is fantastic. It's so funny, like how many times I'm like, man, I can hit this shot at one place, but I cannot at the other. I do not understand this. And you were like, well, you've got the T grind that's going to work, that has like 4 degrees of bounce, that's going to work on that firmer surface that you need to cut through and get underneath. No wonder you're not as good off the fluffy stuff. And I'm like, yeah, my club just always gets, it goes into the sand. It's not coming out.
Correct.
And so I thought, wow, that's a,
And I owe Parker all the credit on that one because I mean, Parker was the one that totally blew my mind with that stuff. Like, I mean, we were out there with Ryan Ruffles in the bunker one day, like last year at some point, and just man, like I had some like, and once again, I'm not a tour player. I'm a pretty good player. Like, I shoot you like 75 most places you want to go. Like, I can
played
play
at
golf.
Louisville, played college golf,
Yeah, I'm not like a chop, but I'm not Parker McLaughlin. I'm not a tour winner, right? Like, and he was like, even when he was on tour, he was known as the short game wizard. Like, his short game chef came from his time on tour. It's not like just something he made up. So, I mean, like, getting in the bunkers with him and kind of talking through some strategies and some situations. And then, fortunately, Parker's introduced me to Mr. Tom Pernice and Mr. Rocco Mediate, and like talking like through it with it, like, dude, it's all, I swear to you, it's all exit strategies. And it's all like, how do we get this thing out of the sand? It's not get like they don't have any hard time getting it into the sand. They don't have any hard times with low point. No, 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 no. How do I get it out of the sand?
Yep.
Like that's what they're all constantly messing with is like these kind of, I would say, an exit strategy from the sand. And once again, man, like if you're out there with a pretty narrow soled wedge that doesn't have a ton of bounce, it doesn't want to come out.
Right.
It wants to dig in and stay in. It doesn't want to bounce back out of there. So I think, a lot of people just, what fits their eye and what they perceive as the right tool for the job I think they one, need to stop comparing their games to tour players and what tour players need. And two, go out there like, and this is where I think the companies have gotten better. Talk smack about some of the OEMs, but I'm going to say some good things. But like, if you're a member at a club or you can get to a facility that does a demo day and they have all the wedges there, man, like, quit hitting full shots with wedges. Like, that's not going to tell
No
you.
need. Yeah.
Go over, like, find a little chipping area, or if there's not one, you can still chip there on the driving range. And just take one of each kind of grind in different bounce scenario and just hit a couple. And people think fitting is this like super sophisticated thing. When it comes to these wedges, man, it's kind of like Goldilocks. This one's too hot, this one's too cold, this one's just right. But, if you can, you know, chip a bunch of different ones and kind of narrow it down to like, I don't know, 3 or 4 wedges. And then if you're really lucky, there's a bunker there somewhere.
Hmm.
Take them over the bunker, see, like narrow it down to two. And now it's like, okay, well, in reality, if you play a lot of different golf courses, you might want to have a couple different wedges, at least like a 58-degree wedge for the bunker that you're going to find at that course.
Hmm.
And when I go over and play golf in the UK, I'm taking a lot different setup than what I'm taking when I play here in the States because the golf courses are completely different. And what I want the golf ball to do is completely different. So you've got to kind of think about these things. And I think so many people, especially when it comes to their wedges and the higher the handicaps, the more I see this, they're like, oh, well, this is the wedge I have, and all my wedges are the exact same. And the only person I've ever seen that is incredibly gifted when it comes to wedge play, and all wedges are exact carbon copies of one another, is Rocco. And he literally has the guys at Artisan grind them all the exact same grind. And the only distinguishing difference between his 3 wedges, or I think, yeah, 3 wedges in his bag, are the loft. The grinds are all the exact. But man, if you think your hands are as good as Rocco mediates, I got something
Yeah.
to tell you because like that guy has got world class hands.
Yeah. And I know we need to wrap this up, but pulling all that info together, and you jumped ahead on one of my topics for a later date is this wedge fitting, and that there are different tools that you need for different environments. But that high, talking about the bunker and talking about that high shot to finish it all up, is that you would put something in front of the ball that you're now really getting some verticalness because we have got to get the angles out. We cannot have the angles.
I teach the juniors I want them to launch the ball with their body, not the
Mm,
club.
that's a
Right.
great
So
thought.
it's almost like kind of trying to pull it up out of the ground with your body. I've explained it to the juniors a lot that way, and they kind of get that. But yeah, man, I mean, it's once again, back in the day, I don't think people do this nearly as much, but we used to just like go over the chipping area and just try to hit stupid shots and do dumb things. And like sometimes, you might learn something from it, you might not, but it's funny. I think that's how people learn. And
Yeah.
people are so afraid these days of going out and trying something that might make them look a little goofy or stupid or whatever. But I was watching this, or I was reading this incredible article with a musician I really like by the name of Trent Reznor. And Trent's kind of it's changed a lot over the years. I started as a big Nine Inch Nails fan, and now they're making all these soundtracks, doing all this like crazy stuff like that. But him and his partner, they meet every day, right, at the same time at his studio, and they have coffee, and like there's not really a plan. Like they just start doing things. And like Trent says in the interview, like sometimes it comes out and sometimes it doesn't.
Mm.
But they're just kind of going through this process of trying new things and evolving and learning. And I think that that's very artistic, and a great way for somebody who is very artistic to learn is throw the rules out the window. Like, hey, here's kind of the outline of the process of what we're trying to do. And if we make gold, we make gold. And if we don't, that's okay too, as long as we learn a little bit from it. And I think more people kind of could apply that to, especially like the short game, the chipping and the pitching kind of aspect of golf, because like I said earlier, that's really the artistic part of golf, in my opinion. Like there's some pretty hard and fast rules when it comes to how we hit our driver, how we hit our approach shot, how we putt. But when it comes to like, we're going to have so many different scenarios when it comes to short game, it's unreal.
Hmm.
Grasses, bunkers, this, that, whatever. So you've really got to kind of have a good feel for that. And I think that's where you kind of almost want to apply like an artistic process to it.
Yeah. And not being afraid to get away from the golf ball. You will not miss it. You will not miss the ball. You're not going to hit it thin by standing. You're going to hit it thin by being too down on it and hitting it
100% with
thin
your body.
on the way down,
Yeah,
not on the way up. So
100%.
I think my great friend Blake Chaffee in Austin, Texas, is going to love this episode. He's going to be fired up.
Yeah, for sure.
This was
Texas guys know how to chip because, man, they're chipping off
hard pan.
hard pan, right?
Uh,
So, like, those guys know how to get it done because obviously, you don't chuck in at Texas, you blade the living daylights out of it. So, yeah, those guys, they know how to move low point forward for sure.
This was great.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
think it
if
was
you
good too.
have anything else. I hopefully did a good job of, and if we did not, let us know. I think we got
Everybody send Chuck a note and let him know he's doing a great job
no,
because
no,
I
not
keep
me. I
trying to
mean,
tell Chuck he's doing a great job and he doesn't listen to me. So
just that we
everybody that's listening to this, send Chuck a message. Just go, good job, buddy. Keep it up because he needs
just
he needs some confirmation in his life.
just that
But
we
yeah,
got the info from you, and I think you did an awesome job of explaining to where in other podcasts you'll hear these terms and they'll talk, but it's like, tell me how the juice is made. Like, give me.
yeah.
I thought that was fantastic. The way that you just talked us through high, low, vanilla is great.
Yeah. Well, I'm just stealing from the greats. So I have to make sure that, I'm stealing from Mr. Joe Mayo, I'm stealing from Parker, I'm stealing from James Ridyard, Rocco, Mr. Pernice. Like I've just been very fortunate, been around some pretty smart people that know how to get this stuff done. And I'm always very curious, so I'm always kind of paying attention and asking questions, which I think is a good life lesson for most of us is just stay curious and keep asking questions. So
Mhm.
yeah, man, I think this was a good episode and definitely a good place to kind of wrap this one up. But yeah, we're going to continue on. Season 7 is in full swing now. Once again, thank you to everybody who sent in questions, recommendations, comments. As I said, please be sure to reach out to Chuck and make sure you tell him he's doing a great job because I'm having a hard time convincing him of that. But yeah, great episode. If you're unfamiliar, or if you're new to the podcast, you can find it anywhere you download your favorite podcast by searching the Measured Golf Podcast. And then if you are interested in seeing either one of us, we also post this to our YouTube page, and you can find that by going to youtube.com and searching Measured Golf. That'll pull up the page that has the podcast. It has the other content that we just started releasing as well, getting back into me in the lab and talking about the golf swing. We actually put up the first video in a while this week where we talk about how we load the trail hip in the golf swing. And a lot of people have been pretty into that. And I think that's kind of answered some questions for them. But we're really going to have the YouTube rocking and rolling. So if you're not already following us or subscribed to us on YouTube, please be sure to do that. That way you don't miss a new podcast, don't miss a new content piece. You can also find me on Instagram by searching the Force Plate Guy or Measured Golf. And you can find Chuck. I don't think he's changed it yet, but what's your Instagram handle again?
At Hudlow 423.
At
I thought about
Hudlow423. And tell him he's doing a good job because he's very sensitive about this, but I think he's doing a wonderful job. And I'm not surprised our YouTube for the podcast did a lot better than usual. And I think we owe it all to that hairdo that Chuck has. I think that really brought in the viewership this past time. So thanks again. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure that you're subscribing and following along so you don't miss a new one. And as always, keep grinding.